In this episode, I'm introducing season 5 of the Podcast in the Rough, and we're going to dive right in. You don't want to miss this. Tune in. This is the Podcast in the Rough. Tune in every Friday for new adventurous episodes. Welcome back to another episode of the Podcast in the Rough. I'm your host, Zebulon Thomas, and this is episode 143, and it is the first episode of season 5. Season 5. And I talked about this in previous episodes on how long you should have seasons, how long they should run. And definitely go check out that episode because I'll leave the description like what episode that was because I'm drawing a blank right now. But I literally was doing episodes at the very beginning of my podcast I thought an episode like a season. I'm sorry. I was doing seasons that lasted as long as like a year. And I thought that was like, you got to do 100 episodes before you change seasons. And that's not the case. But you got to definitely check out that episode I did on that, covering that. This is season 5. And I'm so excited for season 5 because this is not scripted. If anything, I got some bullet points here and that was it. And because I was having a conversation yesterday with my son-in-law and it was really good because I was like, I'm thinking so hard. I'm perfecting this podcast. I'm making the best I can make it. And what is going on? Like, why am I not getting the success I have, but yet I can get the same success for other people doing similar, if not the same thing? And I've had great success with other companies and entrepreneurs. And my podcast has always been something that's it's on the back burner. Like, I give everybody else the best ideas. I give everybody else the effort 100%. And it wasn't until recently, this past year and a half, going into the second reboot of season 3, that I was like, I'm going to give myself all that I gave other people. And I really did see a huge growth in my podcast in so many different levels. And it's not just views. I want to just make that quite clear. Like, stop looking at the views. The algorithm is going to destroy that for you in so many ways. Or it's going to build you up and then it's going to tear you right down. Like, there's some things I know about the algorithm that I'll be sharing with you guys in this season. And just the secrets of success and how things really work, right? And I'm not going to go into so much detail that it's like, oh, this is all like conspiracy. Like, I'm just telling you what I've learned along the way and why I don't beat myself up over the views. It's intimidating sometimes. You're like, oh, I'm not getting enough views. What you really want to look at is, are you making a lasting impact? Are you leaving behind something that people can pick up and go, wow, this is awesome. It's great content. Are you adding massive value? And then ultimately, are you building a community? For me, I'm building the community that I want. I don't want everybody in my community. I just want the key people in my community. The people that really support each other. They support me. They work hard for the greater good, and we all lift each other up. And we go, hey, you know what? Let's move forward. When things get tough, we're all going to pull together and figure it out. And so that's been important to me building my podcast. And I want to get more personal in season 5 here. And so I want to bring this up, kind of talking about this conversation I have with my son-in-law and how I've perfected my podcast so much. Like, it's like, let's go at it with the thumbnails. Let's go at it with the, getting the SEO ranking as high as it can be. Everything's optimized. We got the podcast episodes, running, at least 6 minutes or less. Like, they're really put together. They're tight. There's no fluff in there. It's all giving you massive value. But you know what happens when you do that? A lot like what's happening and what's starting to unfold with AI, right? Which we'll get into that too later. But you take the human experience and element out of it. And when I was having this conversation with my son-in-law, and he was telling me this, is like, you got to be more personal. You got to bring it back. Like, yeah, you're adding value, but people can't attach to you. And I'm like, these are all the things that I teach, and I forgot it. What I'm saying? Like, I was brought in to build communities and create strategies, but you know what? The strategy part of me got, overwhelmed, and that took over, and I was built into this machine working with these entrepreneurs over the past 3 years. And I was this machine that just had to deliver. And they stripped me of my human part of me, if you will. Like, they took out all like types of relationship and emotional, and they were just like, hey, this needs to get done. What do you got? Here's a chunk of money. Make it happen. Do the impossible. Sweet, you did it. Awesome. Do it again, right? And again and again and again. And kept doing it and like raising the bar. And it's like, how high can we raise this bar on this individual? Like, dang, where's he come from? And I'm over here like the creative, like, let's go. Like, I'm unlimited. And I wasn't. And I hit a top, and I was like, whoa. And fortunately for me, or maybe it's unfortunately for me, fortunately for them, I hit the top and the point where it's like, boom, I blew open the doors, gave them like 1,000% more than what they expected. But for me, I pulled back at that point and said, all right, that's enough. You're not getting any more. And why I say it's unfortunate for me, because it should have been the other way. I should have hit a plateau with them and realized, dang, I just don't have any more in the tank. They're pushing me too high. I can't keep up. And that was their goal. But instead it was like, no, I gave them exactly what they wanted. I had another level and I stopped and fell apart before we hit that level. I bailed out. So they didn't get to see that. They didn't crash and burn where I crash and burned, where I was like, oh man, I burn out. I had experienced social media and strategic burnout. And I was like, there's no way. I didn't think I could do that. And you know how that happens, in my opinion? When you get burnt out, it's because you've isolated yourself and you've cut off all human experiences and all the adventures and all the connections and the emotional connections to the things that you do. I was no longer passionate about what I was doing. I was just there to drive the number up and get more views, get more money, cash those likes into checks type of thing, like expand. Can we do this? How do we do this? Find the right people in the world. Here's a bunch of money. Go bring the people in, build the companies, sell them, right? And that's not what I was built for. And so, like I said, this podcast is unedited. I'm not going to go through and clean this thing up and cut a bunch out. I want this to be raw in season 5. I want all of you to know that, like, this is who I am, right? And going back to the conversation with my son-in-law, it's like, we don't need to script the podcast as tight, right? Like maybe it's okay at the beginning to build it and give some people the value, but what am I seeking? And when I thought about that, I was like, what am I seeking? What am I really doing here with this podcast? Because the podcast is something that when I initially started it, I was a lot like many of you that are in my group, sitting there thinking about it like I want to. It sounds exciting. How do I get the time? What is it going to be called? What am I going to talk about? Oh man, I got to get vulnerable. And I'm telling you, it was so exciting just to record and have one up and go, I got a podcast. And at the beginning, I wasn't like, hey, I got a podcast. Look how many views I got. No, I got a podcast. And I knew I had 0 views, 0 subscribers. And I told everyone, hey, my friends, I was like, if you'd love to support me, check this out. And then I'd get some people that were outside of my circle that I didn't know. I'm like, oh, I got a real subscriber. Okay, I got to deliver now, And it was really exciting about that. And at the beginning also, I shared my story. I started just like, what am I going to talk about? Well, I'm going to talk about my day. I had a great day and I did this. And, I was working this podcast around my current, career, like as a filmmaker and the commercials and the cool people I got to meet. And that's initially how I started to build my podcast. And then after, 10, 20 episodes, I was like, I really want to just dedicate this podcast to sharing my vulnerable moments, sharing my success, sharing my ups and downs, and just documenting what's going on in my life. And because before podcasting, I was a vlogger. I vlogged every day of my life on YouTube. And the videos are still up. You can still see them. And it opened so many doors. It gave me the ability to look back on my life and watch my life in real time. It was exciting. But some of the problems I experienced with vlogging was in those moments, I had to decide, do I want to experience this moment or do I want to film this moment so I can experience it later, so I can watch it later? And you really can't do both. Because when you have a camera out, you're trying to capture all the moments, you're trying to be ahead of it, and you're entertaining. And so it comes down to I really do cherish the moments I get to experience these days, which I do that because I don't vlog anymore. But I do want to capture the moments to look back on. Like, it is really exciting to go back and watch 4 years of my life every single day and see what I did. Like, and of course, it's the highlights. Some vlogs I went and just didn't edit at all, but I put together the best highlights. And that's initially how I did the podcast at the beginning. I was like, I'm going to talk about the highlights. And then I'm going to talk about the ups and downs. And then this thing called the pandemic happened. And man, I'll tell you what, this thing, it got me to a point in the pandemic where I'm like, well, a lot of people are listening now because they're all at home. So I started speaking a little more deeper, started talking more about like my roots of like where I came from and things I went through, and started getting into personal development. And I started sharing just a little more story. And that's when I saw a big, explosion in my podcast, a lot of people reaching out. And then I was like, well, I'm going to have guests on. And I reached out, and that's where the podcast for me opened so many doors. I was like, wow, just like my camera, I can go places, and like I got this camera, people are excited. I do a cool shot, and they go, wow, that looks amazing, because I show it to them. And then there's like, we start getting into some creative work, and I love that. So podcasting, the same way. I was like, I don't know this person halfway around the world. They have an interesting life. I'm going to reach out through email. Bam. Scheduled a date. Jump on a Zoom. Now I got a guest on. Learning about this person's life. Getting their ideas. That was awesome. And I was on a roll. I was on a roll with the podcast then. And season 1, I was like, I don't even think it was season 2 yet. And I'm in the middle of this pandemic, like everybody else, trying to figure it out. And then I get this incredible opportunity, and I jump on it, and it skyrockets into a whole new world. And that's where I became this creative strategist, and all my skills and everything I've learned as a videographer and commercial videographer, all that I was doing for local businesses and big brands, because I built my company up, I was now feeding entrepreneurs, and I didn't know nothing about this industry. And I just wish someone would have said, hey, Zebulon, let's think about this. Did you manifest this? Because we're going to talk about a lot of that. Okay? I don't need to make you a believer. I just want to explain to you, like, forward thinking and manifestation is real. Okay? And I can contest that over and over again. And what you focus on, that's where you go. And so for me, bringing it back, I was like, what am I going to do next? Like, what's the next thing for me? And at the time, right before pandemic hit, I was doing a lot of touring and video stuff with this artist, MGK. And I was like, wow, I don't know where this is going. This is going to be great. And I have my local businesses, and I have my sponsors, and I have my big brands. And then, boom, everything's leveled. Tour's over. Everything's over. I didn't even get to go that way. I was like, dang, what? I'm like, what am I going to do with this? And it was a reset. But then, out of the blue, I get this opportunity with these entrepreneurs. 2 in particular. Big one. Top tier, man. And I was like, let's go. Why not? I look up to these people. Let's go. In the back of my mind, I'm hearing this, don't ever work or meet your mentors. Don't do it. And I was like, nah, I don't know what that's all about. Everyone I met so far has been really awesome. Everyone has their days. Man, I wish I would have listened. And I look at this. I had huge success during the pandemic. Like, unbelievable. I'm so grateful, right? I really am. I'm so grateful for the amount of success I had on so many levels. And I want to touch base a little bit on this episode, just a little bit, and I'll dive deeper later. And I just want to touch base on it because it's very important. And I got my notes here, and I'm trying to break this up into chapters so you can kind of go back and look at this, but there'll be show notes. I'll put that together on the blog. So basically, we're in chapter 1, and I'm titling it The Evolution of My Podcast. I should have said that. So listen, it's unscripted. So chapter 1, The Evolution of My Podcast. Okay. And I just want to talk about this part because this is where the podcast was. And I want to share this information with you because if you're on your journey and you're starting out, I want you to be aware of some things. First off, if you're manifesting something, you'll know it when it shows up. If it shows up and it's not something you manifested, I would question that. Even if it looks like an incredible opportunity, I would question it. And I said this before in a post I did a long time ago. This opportunity I had during the pandemic was a distraction. It was a left, right? It was a left and right type of thing. And I was trying to go straight. And I want to say I should have went straight. But in a way, it's not always a bad thing. It's just you got to make sure someone can pull you out of it or you can learn from this. I don't say it's a mistake. Listen, this part of my life is still unfolding, this chapter. That's what I'm realizing. So I can't say, even though it's like 3 years ago, I still can't say this chapter was a chapter yet. It's unfolding still. I'm still getting out of that. And I bring this up because here's where the pros were. I was compensated very well, right? My skills were put to the test, and it gave me a huge boost in what I'm able to do because I realized, wow, I'm really, really good at what I do. And then you take a huge amount of money and you put it to my ideas. Up until this point, everyone is still playing, Little League, with all the brands and companies I'm working with, Little League. They're not throwing the kind of money at it that they need to, some of these ideas. So we can never get the ideas I was doing, some of them top tier ideas to go because we didn't know what that looks like and it was too big of a risk. So then you get with these top tier entrepreneurs, right? Top 1%ers. And we're like, all right, here's an idea. And they're like, sweet, we'll throw a couple million at it. Bam. And it blows up. And I'm like, okay. So this idea would have been big for those companies. If they took the risk, the probability of that being a success was extremely high. There's always a risk, but it would have been extremely high. And I've had local businesses play big with me. They're big. I'm not talking, they're not throwing millions, but they're throwing big at their top where they're like, oh, if this doesn't work, it's really going to hurt us. And they've had home runs. And so when I had the opportunity to throw a bunch of ideas at something and create whole new things, and they throw millions at it, it's like, bam, like, wow. And I built so many entrepreneurs' empires that they stand on right now. And I say that with a little bit of a grin, showing a little bit of my teeth, because part of me is I'm proud of that, proud of them. The other part is like, really? Like I feel used. I feel like, what the heck was that about? So the pros was I got paid. The pros was my skills were tested. My pros was I had major confidence boost. I had opportunities to meet a lot of people. The biggest opportunity was I got to see behind the scenes, and boy, was I right on how it worked. I was like, how do they do it? How are they running the show? What are little things going on? And not only was I right, but I was like, wow, that's exactly what it was. I knew it. Because I built my own system the same way that I imagined their system was built. And I had success from it. But you know what I found? I found that they were not optimized in a way of like, they were doing a lot of unnecessary things that didn't need to happen because there's a lot of people that need to put their hands in the pot. A lot of people had to have decisions, wanted to feel like they knew something. And so they're wasting a lot of money, wasting a lot of time, and dumping a lot of creative things that could have been even bigger. And so the podcast for me, I want to get back to the podcast, during these successors, is I took to my podcast, and if you listen through the season, I can't pinpoint it. I'm not allowed to. But if you go back and you binge listen to some of my stuff around that time, you'll see where it shifted. You'll see where here I am sharing my stuff in the podcast, and then boom, someone took hold of my tongue, right? Someone censored me. Someone said, hey, listen, if you're going to be here, you can't be there. And there was a point where I still can't talk about it, but there was a point where I literally could not share what I promised myself I'd share. Even just the good success parts, like, oh my gosh, can you believe what we did? We just made blank blank for blank blank, right? Like, and it was incredible. And I just met blank blank, right? Like, and I got to go, nope. And we got picked up and nope, can't talk about that. Can't talk about that. So like my podcast took a backseat. My career as a commercial videographer was already taking a sit down, a little pause because of the pandemic, but it took a back seat, and then it took you got to wipe it out. Like I was like, I was literally, now this I'm gonna talk about. I'm gonna share it because I can, because this is mine. I was advised that I had to shut down a lot of the business endeavors I was currently involved in, including sponsors. I had to disconnect from sponsors. I had to shut down online courses. I was even asked to shut down my whole entire business website and everything that I do. Like my YouTube, like if you want this, you can't have that. You no longer have that. You're with us. And I'm like, I'm not giving that up. And I'm proud of myself for getting to a point going, hey, you know what? I do want this opportunity. Because I already had a test run where I made super success with these individuals. I can't even go into detail, but super success. And they were excited about it. And they said, okay. And it's back and forth. It's not even with them. It's talking to the legal team and the whole bunch of people that I'm like, who are you guys? Like, where'd you guys come from? And they're like, you can't do this. We're going to shut this down. Like, and if you don't want that, and luckily I made such an impact on the entrepreneurs that they found out about the pressure being put on me from their company, which they paid a lot of money for these people to put that pressure on people because they're supposed to keep their business functional and safe. That they're like, hey, you know what? We get it. I know I'm paying you to do this, but we're gonna let this individual, he's a little more unique. I want them closer to me. So, you can wrap everything, let him do what he does. And we're going to, pardon that because he's making us more than anyone has touched in this company, in this industry. And that's where I was. And again, that boosts the ego. So I'm like, oh my gosh, like I'm favored and I'm also at the top tier. And I'm like, holy cow, but then I remind myself where I came from. Like, this isn't something that someone gave me this opportunity. I earned this opportunity. I spent years developing my skills. If it's years paying attention, spent years pouring my heart into the opportunity to make sure everyone succeeds. See, nobody wins if they all don't win, right? Like, I'm saying, like everyone has to win to win. But I didn't know that in this industry. No, they just have to win. You don't get to win. They get to win. Their clients don't get to win. They get to win. Their customers, their business partners, only they get to win. And I was like, wow. And so you start figuring this stuff out and you want to share more in the podcast. And so here I am thinking like, man, all this stuff could be great on podcasts because it's the adventure. It's the hero's journey. It's like, I want to share it. And so I had to make some adjustments. I had to shift in what I talk about, what I do. And so there's pros and cons to the success in, the evolution of my podcast, and being able to capture that is very important because that, going back to the conversation me and my son-in-law had, is like the human experience. Like, people can attach to you when you share your story. People attach to you when they know your personality. And to this point, since then, because of that derailment, I come back at the podcast just sharing the strategies. I built into a machine. I come back as a cyborg, if you will. I come back as a machine, literally. Just like, this is how you get it to go. This is what happens. This is the pros and cons. There's no thinking about it. You just go. And I was tired of just going. And you start going to a point where you start asking questions like, why am I going? Why am I doing this? Why am I focusing on that? And it takes someone to come left to center for you too, to go, hey, you know what? I know you took an opportunity back then. I know you found yourself in this industry and you're fighting to get out because you don't know. And you think that is the world, and you realize that it's not. Because again, my career as a videographer, as a commercial filmmaker, literally spans across industries. I've been in almost every industry imaginable, and I've had success in all of them. And I've had the privilege to work with so many people across industries. This just happens to be one of them that was a little bit bigger, and I fell in some quicksand. I started to sink. Someone needed to pull me out. And every time I got someone to pull me out of the quicksand, I got pulled into another area of quicksand, if you know what I mean? Because I wasn't getting out of the industry. I was actually getting heavier and deeper into the industry. And that's when I started to get with the sharks. The real sharks. Like, it's one, you get a big shark, you roll with it. But you get a bunch of sharks, now they start to tear off each other, start ripping, you start witnessing other people ripping. It's just a mess. The water's bloody. It's red. It's a red ocean. It's not a blue ocean. It was a red ocean. And so I had to get out of that. And so that bring it back to the podcast, like that's why up until now, it took me till now, 3 years later, adding massive value on all these episodes, which I do love my previous episodes. I love them. I love how they're, the creative stories. I love how it fits the theme and the narrative, and like I'm giving you value and I'm teaching you how to podcast from start to success, and I'm building my community. And then one day I get up and I just feel like, why am I doing the podcast? And that's not what a podcast should feel like. I need to be excited about doing the podcast. And there's phases to this. The evolution of my podcast, obviously sharing my story, my hero's journey. I get to a point in my career where I'm successful. I start sharing that. And then, I get derailed. I come back. I'm like, well, here's what I learned from my adventure. And that's what the Podcast in the Rough is all about. You find the diamond in the rough, if you will, right? Like, I went on this adventure. I went into the cave of wonders, if you will, right? Like, I went into the lion's mouth, literally. And I came out with all this treasure. Right? If you look at my thumbnails, you look at my story, it's all there. It's all hidden in the art. And listen, that is all me. Like, I've given it to you in so many ways, visual, audio, like in video, like it's all there in the art, in the development of this podcast, of this the Podcast in the Rough. Like it means so much to me. And I love this podcast, and I do. And up until now, like a couple weeks now, it's been where I'm like showing up to the podcast, giving value, and I'm just like, my heart's not in it. I'm not feeling this. Like I'm like excited for the episode. It's 6 minutes or it's 10, and it's great. It's to the point. It's too streamlined. It's too scripted. And I share this with you listening, because if you're thinking about podcasting or doing a podcast, switch it up. don't forget to not turn into the cyborg, right? Like, don't take away your personality out of the podcast. Don't forget that value is great, but it's not everything. Human interaction is everything. That's so important. And why did I forget this? And it wasn't until I had a conversation. Thank God I had this conversation, because I would have just did another episode. And I was like, no, season 5 has to be different. And I don't want to, listen, I got it down to where it's like, I'm editing my whole episodes in a week. It takes a week to do an episode. And then I was like, can I make it better? No, yeah, I can. Boom. And I get it down. I add more to it too. And I get it down to where like I'm editing the episode in a day. And I was like, well, can I cut some things out and streamline it and not sacrifice too much quality? And I figured out how to use my equipment better. And I got it down to 2 hours. And I'm like, yes. And now I'm like, it doesn't even have to be 2 hours. I need to spend the time giving you what it is. I need to be able to look back at each episode and go, that was a part of my life. That's a chapter in my life. And that's what this is all about. Not like there's value and there's strategy. It's all there and yada, yada, yada. I don't want to be that guy. I want to give you the realest stuff because I'm tired of holding back. And I learned something else. I also don't want to give you my trauma. I don't want to give you my pain. I want to share my story, but I don't want to bleed on you. That's something new I learned too. And think about that too. You share your story with people. Have you ever shared something, maybe a traumatic experience or something you went through in your life, and the other person's like, they got this look of shock on their face, like, what the, whoa. And like, they're so emotionally detached because it's too much for their brain to process that they don't even know what to say to you. They're not crying. They're not happy or sad. They're just numb to like, okay. And then they leave the conversation. It's because you've literally bled on them, your pain that gave them trauma. I'm learning about this. And this is all part of like how success has affected me mentally on my mental health journey. You know what I mean? Like what that is. And we're going to get into that. But I just want to talk about these things because this, I feel, is going to take you somewhere else on a whole bigger scale. If I can share the secrets of my success, my ups and downs, to help you navigate the waters of your business, of your life, of what that looks like, I'm going to make you better. That's awesome. That's my new purpose. I'm tired of making people all this money. I'm tired of people making, I want to help make people better people. Screw being richer. Like, I want to make you better people so we have a better vibration on this planet, so we can manifest better things into our lives, so we can be happy, so that when the world is run by AI, if it does end up to be a good thing and we don't have to work as much because we have AI bots doing it for us, we can actually sit around together and enjoy each other's company. And if it doesn't turn out too good and AI has become a problem like we see in these movies, we know how to communicate with others to build trust, respect, and make life even better, right? Because that's what it should be about. So I just want to get into that. Listen, I'm going to go into chapter 2 here. Chapter 2 is titled A Window of Opportunities. The podcast has been a window of opportunity. It literally has window of opportunities. And I want to bring this up because you have to create the vehicle that gets you to where you want to go. You have to manifest. And manifesting to me, and what has worked for me, has been about thinking and obsessing over what it is you want to come into your life. If you're not thinking about it, it's not going to show up, right? You're not just going to win the lottery if you don't go buy the ticket, if you don't play the numbers, right? I'm not suggesting you go do that either, because it's a whole other thing. But I'm saying you have better chances of gambling with the universe and wishing upon that and manifesting that, obsessing over that, for that to show up before you would hit the lottery. Okay? So spend more time there. And it's simple. It's simple. It's about creating a vehicle. For me, the vehicle is a podcast, or it's my videos, right? Yours could be art. Something that allows you to be able to express yourself and communicate with others and get them to be attracted to what that is. Like, look at this shiny object. Oh, why I got you here. Let me tell you about who I am, or whatever that is. Or let me see if I can help you. Or let's share a common interest, right? So podcasting has been that opportunity, and same with video, but podcasting even more, where I can reach out to anybody on this planet, literally, and be like, hey, I would love to have you a guest on my show. And I want to make you feel special. You're the star. You're the highlight. And while you're on the show, I've done my research, and I've also put together some key questions so I want to extract information from you. I want to get some life experiences from you. I want to share that with the listeners, but also for me to upgrade my life. And so think of the manifestation that way, okay? You create your vehicle. What is your vehicle first, right? Maybe it's exercise, fitness. It's whatever allows you to do something continuously and think about it, and brings people together. And then from there, I want you to start thinking about how you can make this vehicle become bigger and bring everything it is that you want into your life, right? So podcast is the door and the window of opportunity, because if you start here, I promise you it'll give you a launching pad to build a business, a career, a bunch of friends, a lot of experiences. I mean, heck, you grab a microphone, a little, traveling PodTrack P4 from Zoom, and I'm not promoting them, not endorsing them. I'm just excited about it. Just got to say that, because where I'm at these days, like, people are going to be like, hey, you endorse that, I'm not. So, but you grab this, whatever it is, and you head out into the world, and you go to an event, and you start, hey, you work your way backstage to these athletes or something. I just want to get an interview, and you get that. Who knows? Maybe you become friends with the person. Maybe you have a new opportunity. Maybe someone hires you to get interviews. Like, it's the adventure. I challenge you all to go on an adventure with your life and your business and things that you want to do, right? So I think that it's so important. I want to share that with you. And in season 5, I'm going to be sharing more of that with you. So definitely tune in, because I want to give you the best of the best. And we're bringing it back. I'm humbling myself. I'm bringing it back to not scripting my podcast so much and how it used to be. The one thing I will not do, like I did at the beginning, is I'm not going to record on my phone. I got all this equipment now. I've graduated to that. And we're going to stay quality, baby. We're going to get quality. That brings me to chapter 3, sharing the roller coaster of the ups and downs, which I've kind of talked a little bit about that with my entrepreneur journey and my career and how I had a shift. But here's what I want to say. The value in which those ups and downs, I should say, has brought me tremendous value. And here's why. Here's why I'm humbled. I'm grateful for that opportunity, even though it's been a pain in my butt, right? And it's really been a hurdle. And it's been hard to climb out of. But the pros was, I sped up my workflow. My skill set was tested so much, so fast, so vigorously, that I accomplished the next level of what that evolution of my skill set would be and my knowledge in the fastest amount of time possible. And it's good. I got burnt out doing it, and I'm still struggling from burnout. It's very real. Look it up. Look up YouTubers that are burned out. They can't make content anymore because they just can't. It's a psychological burnout. It's emotional burnout. And we're trying to learn how to get out of it. It's a funk. It's a weird funk. But that doesn't mean I don't have the creative juices in me. Like, it's just there's certain things that I just can't do anymore. And you just can't deal with idiots. You can't deal with mean people. You can't. I want to say it, but I can't say it. But you just can't deal with evil, right? But you put some passion people in front of you, put some right people in front of you, some loving people, some people that are on a new mission, a real mission. Boy, that creativity does not have a cap anymore. It's just no more burnout. So we're learning about this. They really are doing research on this. But the pro is that my skill sets have upgraded so fast. I learned so much more about editing. I've learned I was forced to not hold a camera for a while and just do editing. And then I was forced to do camera. And then I was forced to micromanage the production team of the people doing the camera and the editing. And I was like, well, this is how we do this. And my skill set was so evolved. Like, you cannot get that in school. You cannot get that on a piece of paper for education. It's not a degree. It's nothing. Like, that is just real, in the field experience you can't get unless you have the opportunity. And I'm so grateful for that. And so I got to remind myself of the gratitude and why I'm grateful for those experiences, what they were good for me, even though the bad really weighs heavy. But again, that's what they say. That's just business. But I say, no, it can't be just business. I know people doing business that are so happy they haven't been burnt, have been used, misled, so good. And I think you have to set your intent on everything you're doing when you go in to do it, right? When you get into it, you have to set the intent. So I challenge you to set your intent on what what your roller coasters have been or what they're going to be, and set the intent to always say, you know what? I'm going to set this intent to say, whether it's an up or a down, I'm going to address it with the opportunity to say, this helps me grow, right? It helps me grow. And the narrative, out there that people are setting, remember, a lot of people are herding the cattle, right? They're telling everybody what to do. And this is what it is. But when you start to roll in that direction, create your own lane. And it's not about telling people what to do, just guide them. Say, hey, this is what I'm doing. If you want a part of this, jump on this, this is the trail. Jump on this train, if you will. It's going to be great. So I want to share that with you because it's very important, and we're going to get more into that about the ups and downs. And I want to be more personal with you on here, my listeners, because this is where I'm taking this podcast. We're back, baby. I'm sharing you the journey of where I'm going. I'm lifting off the weights, I'm dropping them down, and I'm saying I'm no longer being silent, but I'm also not going to bleed on you. I'm going to just show you what I've learned. I'm going to share with you the good stuff, and I'm not here to talk bad about the experiences I've been through. I want this to be an uplifting experience for myself and for all of you listening, because at the end of the day, I don't want you to wear my trauma. I want you to walk away from this podcast episode and other episodes in the future and go, dang, I'm inspired. Like, I don't feel so bad about, like, this situation isn't something, like, it's not about like, oh, his story was worse than mine and I don't feel bad about mine. No, it's like, wow, his story was, wow, if he can see those things, like, I wonder if I need to look at my situation differently, my trauma differently, or my current job or my current career differently, and how I can be better at it. I want to just remind all the people that are being bad bosses and bad entrepreneurs that maybe you fell off. Maybe you got so caught up in making the money. Maybe you got so caught up in streamlining. Maybe you got so caught up in success and rolling over more money that you somehow became your own prisoner to that, and you lost your way. And you need to look at your staff and all the incredible people that are serving you and go, I deserve, and they deserve for me to be a better person. And I can literally make more and have more success and more in my life by just changing my intention to be better. But some, they don't know it. So if you hear this and you're one of those entrepreneurs, you know what you got to do. You know what you got to do. So listen, I want to go into chapter 4 here. Chapter 4 is growth that comes with vulnerability. Growth that comes from vulnerability. Being vulnerable in your content, on your social media, and not talking about your highlights, let me tell you, that speaks way louder than you coming out on your social media and your websites and your podcast or whatever that is, and you're going, hey, I can make you this much money, or I made this much money, and I'm going to show you how. Like, you know what? Why don't you go, hey, you know what? I just did this deal. It didn't work out. I lost a lot of money. I don't know what I'm going to do. Or, hey, you know what? I didn't get the job, so I'm going to try to do something else. Or, hey, you know what? I'm having a really rough day, even though I made a lot of money, and I should be so happy. But money doesn't bring happiness, and I'm really destroyed right now. I'm having a bad day. I want to share that with you. Or, you know what? This is what mental health looks like. I'm happy, but inside I'm not. Or, you know what? Inside I'm really happy, but outside I'm so angry because my environment is pissing me off, right? It's pushing on me. The vultures are pecking at me, but I'm really happy. I want to be happy, right? Like, you share that is going to speak longer. It's going to speak louder, I should say. It's going to reach more people at a deeper level, and those are the people that are going to flock to you and bind to you and help you, and we're going to lift each other up. So don't forget to be vulnerable and be genuine vulnerable. Listen, a lot of those entrepreneurs, they're really good. They should be the A-list actors. They are really good at making it look like they're vulnerable and they relate to you. Listen, how good of an actor or actress could you be if while you're looking at that screen, you look at the number above, which is your bank account number, and you go, 30 million? I'm just making these numbers up, so don't hold me to it. Back off. Okay. 100, 250 million. Like, you're going to act real dedicated to persuading people to feel that you're being vulnerable. You're going to learn to cry on cue, okay? Because at the end of the day, you're like, I did it. Like, it's all mine. I'm the only one that wins. Fire everybody. Get rid of everybody. Let's bring in new people because they know too much about my secrets and about me and our operations here. And we're just going to bring a whole new bunch of people in and go, hey, are you ready to be the next person? Yeah. Let's get it again. And then repeat process. Oh, I'm going to share with you, but I want to do it in a way where we're not talking down on people. I'm just saying there's practices that are out there in play right now that are not good practices. They don't let everyone win. And we can't control that. And that's just how they want to play the game. But you know what? You can play the game differently. And I'm sharing this with you because I don't want you not to run into these individuals or these entrepreneurs, these companies. There's companies that do it too. I want you to build your own and not do that same thing. I don't want you to have that practice. I want you to keep your employees around for years because that becomes the closest people to you. I want you to value them and know that like you're helping support them and they're helping support you and you support their families, and the whole thing, the whole system works. Because I can tell you what, just like as you get older, if you get less friends, if you don't have your friends locked in, you don't have lifelong friends type of thing, it's hard to make friends when you're older. You end up making just business associates, business acquaintance, people you know, just people you know, right? In passing. Same thing with business. You start building businesses up, you start screwing people over, start playing the game wrong, playing like the systems that they built, and the people start catching on to that, it's going to be harder and harder for you to make, friends and then be trusted. And then even though then it gets to a point where it's like, hey, here's an extra couple $1 million we're going to make. Okay, they'll pardon how you treated them because they're going to make some more money on it. But then you got to keep raising the bar. And then now you're sharing billions at that point, and people start going, I don't really want your money. I'm already rich. I'm good. So I just want you to think about that. Okay. Maybe this is over your head. I don't know. Maybe you're not there yet. Stay local. Okay. But I want to move on to chapter 5, success and the impact on my mental health, which again, I've kind of covered a little bit this, but honestly, the success I've had has been amazing. But the problem is I wasn't prepared. I don't think a lot of people are prepared for success at certain levels, especially when it just blows up for you. And I can't even say that mine blew up as big as a lot of people I'm seeing. Like, wow, they're just really blown up. But mine is blown up. Listen, any type of flex in your success is blowing up. It's good. Celebrate it. It's awesome. I mean, I was able to really establish myself on so many levels, and I've met so many people, but I've been exposed to so much that it's just like my brain is on overload, and like, we talk about red flags, like if you're on a date or something, I'm just going to use that as an analogy. You're on a date and you're like, what are some of the red flags for the people who burned me in the past? Maybe they showed up late for dinner. I'm like, they're automatically going to be this type of person, or they show up at dinner and they set their fork a certain way. It's like, oh, they're going to be that person, or, like little stuff. Imagine working with some of the world's top experts and companies and brands, being all over the place, and small local businesses, and in and out of that, you're getting burned and you're succeeding and all this stuff. You have a lot of red flags that come up in a small conversation. I could spend 5 minutes with a business owner or an entrepreneur, and I'll probably have a given 20 red flags of things they've said in their dialogue or things they said. I'm like, that's technically a red flag. And it sucks because you're like, I want to watch you, but at the same time, you're like, well, they don't know they're throwing a red flag. They're really just talking, and it's because someone else anchored that to you, right? Because I've had a lot of business owners and entrepreneurs throw a lot of red flags my way, but they weren't the red flags that meant that it was going to be absolute destruction. It just means that they were sharing their ideas and they were concerned. They had red flags, right? So they kind of bled on me, right, if you will. And so I look at that, I'm like, okay, not everyone's the same way. And you gotta learn to adapt to that. But man, that's part of the trauma, right? Like you do get trauma from business decisions and deals that go bad. And it's hard to get burned and get back up and get burned, knocked down, get burned, But I'll tell you what, I got burned less doing my own thing than I did attaching to someone else's thing. I could tell you that. So maybe that's something to share. Maybe that's something to think about. Don't attach to people. Do your own thing, even if the money's really good. Maybe you go, you know what? I don't need all that money. I just need happiness, and I need to just pay my bills, But if you're chasing the money, I went all in. I chased the money. I was like, I want it. I want it all. Boy, I got it all right. I got everything, and I wasn't prepared for that. And so you learn. But the impact on your mental health, I want to leave you with this on this chapter. Go do the things that make you happy. If it stresses you out, don't do it. Like, I'm not talking about like, oh, this is hard work, or this is challenging me. No, like if it literally stresses you out where you feel sick to your stomach, or you feel uneasy, or you like, like you can go get a job. Don't pursue it. Do the things that really lift you up and lift the people around you up. And if it's, you can design your life and your business, your career. Why go get a crappy opportunity? There's plenty of those out there. Find your foundation, work from there, and find the amazing, manifest it, that amazing opportunity. Focus on what you want to show up in your life. If you don't focus on it, it's not going to show up. So I wanted to share that with you because that's really, really important. And chapter 6 is titled Lessons Learned in Success. Man, this is flowing really good. I love where this is going. The lessons learned in my success are just that. Like literally, don't sacrifice your family time. That goes too quick. Your time with your kids. Don't sacrifice your own time. Like be aware of it. But and I know you got to put in some time to earn that, and you got to work. We all have to do that. But don't give all of your time to someone else. And I did that too. Here's all my time. Yes, whatever you want, we're going to do it. Just because the check was right, just because the money was there. Don't do that. Don't give all your time to someone. You don't need to do that because you can't get that time back. No amount of money could buy that back for you. Especially if you're stressed, now you've hurt yourself. Don't do that. So make sure that you're developing a strategy and you put together your morals and you set the intent to say, I'm going to make sure that even if someone's cutting that check and they're demanding that time, say, hey, you know what? Your problems are not my problems. Your time restraints are not my time restraints. I'm going to get the job done. I can do what you want to do. I'm the person. I can do that. But I'm not going to give you all my time. This is how you play on my playing field, if you will. Oh, I'll work with you for a little bit. I'm not going to attach to you, right? And you might be like, oh man, I need it so bad. I'll just do whatever. Don't do that. Don't just say I need it so bad that I'll do whatever it takes. No, don't do that. You still have to set the intent, set the boundaries, and go, oh, I do need this, but I also won't sacrifice because of this. It's not worth it. I will just go find another you or another thing, another opportunity. I got this podcast, baby. We're going to run it. So that's lessons learned in my success that I want to share with you. And I'm going to go deeper into this much, much later because it's really important, but I definitely want to share that with you. All right, Chapter 7, monetization matters. We're going to talk about this. Like, this is so important too. And this is all part of the success and the process and the manifestation, everything like that. At the very beginning of my career, I would be like, hey, let me do this for you for free because I want to show you what I can do. I want to give you the opportunity to be like, wow, I can't say no to this. Yeah, come on in, let's do it. And that's what I would do. I would do a production because I know what I'm going to get. I know the result I'm going to get. But at the very beginning, doing stuff like that, I should have charged at the beginning because I was already there. I was already doing it. But it's fine. I got some skills. I got something from it. I got to test out the waters, if you will, and know what I'm able to do. And they also won. So in a way, we did both win back then. I gave my time. It was free, but they gave me their location. They gave me their opportunities to play around with their businesses and stuff like that. And because they were successful, and I was like, oh, I know what I can do. And I could take that and build a vehicle and go somewhere and go, bam, we're good. I can do the same thing, repeat the process. And then I started to charge for it. But here's the thing that I want to say. It's very important. Like, if you're there and you know the value of what you can do, definitely charge for it. Definitely charge for it because you have to be compensated for what you're able to do. In this stage of my career, nobody is making money on me unless I'm making money. Like, there's no way the other person wins and I don't get to win. Like, I won't do that. And so I'm looking at every single thing that's out there, everything I've ever done, I've attached to and detached from. Like, if there's money being made from me at all, any trace of me, and you're making money, I need to make money. And if I find out that I haven't made the money, I'm going to come for my money because that's so important to make sure that if you're making gain on something that I did and I'm no longer in the presence of that and I'm not making money, that's not fair to me. Unless that was in our agreement at the very beginning. Yeah, like they can't make money off of me unless I'm making money. And in the future, I am not allowing people to say that this is what we're going to do and I'm going to make money on you after this. Like, that's not how that's set up. So I'm not willing to let other people win without me winning too. It's not fair, okay? And I bring this up because I've made so many people so wealthy, so successful in their businesses, built so many huge communities, and I can't even walk in the room there. I can't even touch that. I didn't even make that much money off of what they made, right? And so I'm not doing that anymore. If I'm not making money, if not the same or more than you, then you don't get it. You don't get the profit off of me. And also there's sponsors and all the brands that think that they can control my tongue. And like, that's why I've wiped a lot of them out. Like, you don't attach to me and make money off me and set the standards. Like, it doesn't work that way. You didn't get to climb the success ladder like I did. You haven't touched the areas of the planet and the industries and the different people. You don't have those deep connections and nourished relationships that you've built. So you don't get access to that stuff just because you cut me a check. You don't get to win without me winning. So I want you to think that going into your business. It doesn't mean, though, that you get to make more than them. Sometimes that's not the case. But when you get to a level professional and you become an expert or you become the top tier of your career, that's when you can actually say, I can do that. When you have the ability to turn away from business endeavors and walk away and not replace it with anything, that's when you can make the decisions. Now, I want you to know this, going into your business and your endeavors, you can always walk away from every opportunity or every business that proposal or whatever that's on the table, you just got to find a way to say, hey, I'm not going to do this. It's against my morals, or it's not my manifestation. It's not my wheelhouse, or there's no intent sent for this. I'm going to walk away from it. It doesn't fit right with me. It stresses me out. But know that you now have to go find a replacement for that you walked away. And it'll come because you're going to manifest it. But when you're at the top tier and you've grown, you've earned that place, you know what your value is, you know what you offer, that's when you can be like, hey, you know what? No, I'm not doing this. And no, you're not making money off me. And no, you don't get to win unless I win. We both win. So that's when I'm like, you know what? Okay. And you can make the decision at that point because you can go, hey, I'm not doing this. And so I just want to share that with you because monetization matters. You have to get paid for what you do. And the more you get paid is based on the more skill and value you know how to add and bring to the table and the experience that you have out there and the relationships you build with other people. I have companies that want to work with me just because of the amount of people I know and the amount of relationships and how deep those relationships go, that they would like to be a part of that. And so they want to attach to me. And so I'm very cautious on who I let into that. Like, you have to be right. You have to have your stuff together. You have to make sure that what you're offering really does add value and really it matches with this community I've built or the communities I'm a part of. It really fits in, because if you don't fit in, it's not going to work. So I don't let you in. And I would expect the same for me. Like that's why right now, if you go to ZT Films, ZebulonThomasFilms.com, I no longer have it open for everybody just to say, I'm working with him. Like, I don't want to work with everybody. I only want to work with the people that are like doing next level things, that are passionate, whether they're a local business or a big brand. And guess what? I have a form you got to fill out. It's a qualification form. You got to qualify to work with me. And that's to protect both of us. Let's make sure we both win. So when I see that, like, your goals and what you want to do and how much your budget is and what you want to spend, I know that, oh, okay, this is where you're at. I have an opening and an opportunity, and I really want to dive into this project. So right there, we're qualified. We're a good fit. And financially, I see your budget. I see where you're at. You're willing to spend. Okay, we're a good fit there. I know where we need to be. And now we can get this goal. But if you go in there and you're not truthful, and I find out that you have this budget that you've made up that you can spend, but you really can't spend it, but you're going to spend it anyways, that's not a good fit, because I'll win. You'll win the content side of things, but you could actually hurt your business because you're spending over what you should spend. So I need to know, how much does your business really make? Can you afford to do what I'm going to do for you? Can you play at this level? If not, let's, here's some strategy, go build it up and see me later. Or you know what? You have this budget set and you think you're going to get all these things out of me and you're going to want to win and I'm not going to win. That doesn't work. I want to make sure we're all on the same page, because you know what? I've had tremendous success in my career. And I've hit a home run with every single entrepreneur, business owner, everybody. And it doesn't mean I'm not going to fail someday at that. But you know what? At this level, I know so much about what I do that I'm very cautious, and I want to make sure that I don't just get everybody coming out of the woodwork. I don't want to work with everybody. I want to work with the people that light me up, to make me feel special too. Not the other way around. Not that they just win and I don't win. You have to win. They have to win. I never go out there and make a business deal or take money or check or have someone sign a contract if I'm not 100% confident I can help them win. They have to win. And I know that, because if I make them win and I take care of them, it should come back. It should. But now I want it in writing. Got to get it in writing. Get that contract, get it in writing, because, again, there are very good actors and actresses out there. Let me just tell you that. Okay, so chapter 8, going for it all. Going for it all. Considerations. Listen, if you're manifesting it, go all in. Go all in. Don't just be like, hey, I want a car. Get specific. What car do you want? What do you want the interior of the car to look like, smell like? What do you want it to sound like? What model, what make, what year? What kind of rims you got? Like, how many miles is on this car? What kind of gas is this car? Is it an electric car? How do you want this car to show up? On a flatbed dropped off at your house with a ribbon on it? You got to go pick it up from the dealership and sit there for hours and fill out stupid paperwork? What do you want? Get specific. Go all in. And that's the same thing with it doesn't have to be financial goal either. Like, if you're asking for money, how much? Okay, you put a cap on it. I want 100,000. Guess what? You're going to make 100,000. You might make a little more. Don't put a cap on it. I want to be wealthy. I want to be abundant. I want money to flow prosperously through my endeavors and myself. Like, that's the questions you got to ask. It's almost like this new Chat GPT, right? If people asking a question, they don't know the prompts. You got to know the prompts. And here's the other thing. You ask the prompts, you ask it, and it gives you something. Write me a life goal. Write me a framework to follow so I can get fit. And they take that and they run with it. They don't even try to personalize it and customize it to be more about them, or they don't ask the second layer question prompts, if you will. You got to take that and be like, hey, you know what? I want to be able to build a business to be able to afford this car and this house. Give me a framework. Bam, there it is. Okay. Give me more details on this specific section of the business. Give me some more details on how to keep my business safe. Give me the details on how much money I should put aside and where should I start looking and who should I start talking about this car and is there another car coming out that I might be better? Like, does it perform better mileage? Is it a safer car? Like, I might have kids in this car. Like, I'm going to have kids someday. So is it a safe car for my kids? Or I'm going to build this business and I want to buy this house with it. Is there a way to buy a house with a business, or should I buy my house straight out? Do I pay the mortgage? Do I, just cash? Get specific. I see people even writing podcast episodes like that. I heard someone the other day tell me I wrote a podcast. Yeah. ChatGPT did it. And I'm like, what? Okay. Well, what did it do for you? All right, I wrote it and I just read it. Okay, so you just read it. If you're gonna have that opportunity to write a podcast with ChatGPT, then say, hey, these are my ideas. Form this into a script. Bam. Okay, now take this script and I'm gonna add my information. I know all about this, and make this script fit around what I know. Okay, cool. And I break it up and ask deeper questions with this stuff. Technology getting to a point where people are just getting more lazy. Again, it's leveling the playing field and bringing the people that weren't as savvy to be able to play in this game together. But now we all got to move up as creatives. We got to get smarter. We got to get more intelligent. So again, ChatGPT is not everything. Okay, it's definitely not artificial intelligence. And I mean that because it's not thinking on its own. It's just grabbing resources and putting it together. It's not actually creating thinking about it and giving you a new opportunity or a new process or framework that it thought of on its own without pulling the data. It's really just copying and pasting things. So think about that. Okay, so again, going for it all. What does that mean for you? What are you going to do? Maybe for you, you're thinking about this, you're watching this, you're listening to this episode, and you're like, I'm going to go for it all. I'm going to do a podcast, right? It doesn't mean you have to spend all this money on it, but you're just going to give all of it into this. And when you go for it all, you get more. Life deserves more when you show up, right? Your business deserves more when you show up. Your life will have more if you play harder, if you swing harder. If you actually connect with that ball and hit a home run, you're going to be able to run the field. If you score that touchdown, people are going to celebrate you. You're going to feel better for the next game. It doesn't mean you're not going to get a loss. You're not going to lose that, but you're not going to get beat up on the field. You're going to get that. You're going to get roughed up. But again, it comes down to the adventure. It gives you the skill set, the confidence to say, this isn't life. Okay. When you play all in, you go all out and you do your thing, you go for it all. When you get knocked down, you don't associate to be like, oh, I just get knocked down. No, you get back up. You go and you get to have a victory and you go do this big thing. And you're like, wow, it feels so great. And then you might get knocked down again and you might be like, dang, it sucks getting knocked down. This is the other side of that, but I'm going to get back up because I really love that feeling of victory, right? So again, you got to go all in. You got to go for it. So I just want to bring this together and say, welcome to season 5. And I want to explain to you that, or share with you that this is unedited. This is just me. This is bringing the podcast back. I'm sharing my stories. I'm sharing the trials and tribulations, the ups and downs, the secrets, the strategies, why you should do this, the manifestation and how that works and what you can do to apply it and make it happen in your life, even when you think it doesn't work or it's not been working and you're jaded. I'm telling you, you got to get out of that state of mind. You got to lift yourself up, and you're the only one that could do it. This is mental health, right? This is how you do that. You got to go get the help when the help is needed. You got to have the right people in your corner to get you to the next level. You got to do things you want to do that feed your life, your family, your fun, your passions, and you got to go all in, man. You got to do that. So I hope I've shared enough with you that really gets you excited for the next episode, and then you click that subscribe button and you really go, you know what, I'm going to check out this thing, the Podcast on the Rough. And I know he did a lot of strategy sessions the past couple seasons. It's been amazing. I could build a whole podcast on that and build my empire. But now he's sharing some really deep stuff. And that's what this is about. Really sharing the deep stuff. And again, I'm streamlining this because I don't want to have to spend a lot of time editing this, but I still want you to have the quality. And looking back, going back to my conversation with my son-in-law, I'm looking at this, I'm like, wow, those episodes are sweet. I do like the 6-minute episode where they're really, really calculated, right? Really cut up, really polished, right? Sounds good. It goes boom, 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 and you can listen to it, take it in. But man, there is no personality there. There's no real connection with me. And a lot of people connect to the host, and I want you to connect. I want to connect with you. And so that only happens by me not polishing this up so much. Man, I went hard too. It was great. Like my EQs were on point. Like my podcast sounds so good in the car. And then I was like, and like the editing is like on point, and it's just like feeds you just what you need. And I'm like, that sounds so good. It's so easy to do this now. But once it gets easy, you got to challenge yourself to the next level. And for me, the hardest thing to do to challenge myself is to get back to this flow where I don't cut out all the air in between words. I don't cut out the breaths, or if I cough on the mic, like it's not going to be that polished. I want you to have that experience with me, right? And I hope you're enjoying this experience because that's what it's all about. So with that being said, I'm going to play something at the very end of this right now because I want to encourage you to show your support for the podcast. And this is how you can support this podcast. If you'd like to support this podcast, buy me a coffee by heading over to buymeacoffee.com/intherough and become part of the adventure by showing your support and taking advantage of any one of our exciting membership tiers. The Podcast in the Rough. All right, if you're enjoying this podcast episode, I would love for you to give me a rating and review about this podcast by heading over to thepodcastintherough.com and scrolling to the bottom of the page and leaving us a review. Or if you're listening to this on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, please leave a star rating and a review. It would help us reach more people and get them to learn about the Podcast in the Rough. Thank you so much for your support. I appreciate it. Okay, once again, if you would like to join me inside the Podcast Community Mastermind Facebook group, it is absolutely free. All you have to do is go to thepodcastintherough.com/learn. That is thepodcastintherough.com/learn and get inside the group and learn how to podcast from start to success. And there it is. I ran all my ads right there. I had to do it, but I wanted to do it. Man, those sound really good. I really do. I like them. But I'm going to be changing my ads up a little bit. And if you notice, my ads are really they're to direct you. Like I'm asking truthfully. Like if you like the episode, boom, do this. If you want to support this to get some premium content, you can go here. And I'm going to be adding to that like something cool, another platform I'm bringing into the wheelhouse here. It's going to be nice. And then obviously I had to plug the group because the group is where my community's at. And I'd love for you to be a part of the community. So again, and so I want to bring that up because now that I'm talking about season 5 and I'm talking about just being vulnerable and sharing all this stuff with you, what does that mean for everyone who wants to learn about podcasting? Well, that means that I'm going to be dedicating some episodes strictly for the group. That also means in the group, I'm going to be more active in sharing some previous episodes and giving you, information. But I really feel like this hits hard because if you want to learn about podcasting, you can always go back and listen to season 3 and season 4 and get everything you need. And you can jump in the group. But right now, this is where we're going to really bring it to right now, the present moment. And we're going to get some really connections and really good strategies from my experience. And so I want you to be a part of that so that just so you guys don't freak out that I'm not going to be sharing about podcasting because in a way I am, but I'm talking a little bit deeper. I'm talking about all around like how you can be better at what you do from my journey. And we're going to go on new journeys together. It's going to be really good. So I just wanted to share that with you, and I wanted to encourage all of you to tune in next week for another great episode of the Podcast in the Rough. And thank you so much for letting me just be unscripted here. And there will still be show notes, so check it out on the blog. Take care. This is the Podcast in the Rough.